Today, we're going to look at the biggest startup failures of all time. And there are a lot of newcomers to the list. 4 out of top 5 are new since I made the list in 2019. There's been a lot of major crashes in the last couple of years. I've researched all kinds of sources and made a list of the top 10 biggest failures ranked after how much was invested in them. And yes, we're talking billions and billions of dollars just on this list. This is Raw Startup. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Reno, and we have over 60 million users all over the world. I've always been fascinated with what you can learn from the big successes, but also the big failures. I've been especially fascinated by all these massive failures, thinking, how the heck did this happen? That's what we're going to look at today. Finally, we'll look at an overview of the 10 to see what they have in common and see if we can learn anything from that. You will be surprised by some of the findings on this list, so stay tuned for that. Always remember that behind any startup, there are real people that have invested blood, sweat, and tears into these startups. Building a startup is rough. Going down with a startup is even rougher, so well done for trying. I have nothing but respect for people that try, and most people on this list really tried. But unfortunately, there's also some serious mismanagement and fraud on the list. With that, let's get going. Number 10, Abound Solar. Abound Solar just makes the list at number 10 with $800 million invested the day they shut down in 2012. One more thing about the list, we will start at the bottom and build our way up to the top. All amounts are converted to today's value so they can all be compared. Abound Solar was a manufacturer of thin film solar panels. A lot of money was flowing into R&D in solar as the cost of polysilicon skyrocketed in 2008, and the industry was looking for alternatives. However, when the costs plummeted, it was hard to compete. Abound Solar is not the only solar company on the list. It's been really hard to find good information about what happened here, but it looks like the cost structure changed completely as the price of polysilicon plummeted and they just couldn't compete anymore. If you know something about Abound Solar, put it in the comments so we can learn more about them. With that, let's move to number 9, and this is a big one. Number 9, Theranas. Theranas, the big scandal of 2018, comes into the list as number 9 with $830 million invested the day they shut down in 2018. Theranas was making a blood testing device that could test you for any disease you can imagine from only a small drop of blood. Theranas was run by the very charismatic Elizabeth Holmes with a very, very deep voice.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
And it did look like Elizabeth Holmes was going to change the world back in 2014. She was on top of the world and the cover of every business magazine in the US. But there was a problem. The product didn't really work. Sure, there was a device, the Edison, but it never worked as they claimed. Actually, it never really worked. They misled investors and bullied employees. And it all came crashing down when the Wall Street Journal started looking at Theranos. Things were not what they looked like at Theranos. Elizabeth Holmes and her partner Sonny Balvani were in 2022 convicted to 11 and 13 years in prison for the fraud at Theranos. All this is very well documented. I read the book Bad Blood, highly recommended. There's also an HBO documentary, a podcast, as well as a TV series called The Dropout. So many things went wrong at Theranos. Obviously no product market fit, but also fueled by mismanagement and fraud. That's it. Let's move to number 8. Number 8, Better Place. Better Place comes in on the list as number 8 with $864 million invested the day they shut down in 2013. Better Place was building a global network of battery charging and battery switching services for electric cars. The key was the battery switching that meant you would have a fully charged battery in minutes instead of waiting for a long charge. I always felt that this was a way too cumbersome solution to a problem that would solve itself in a few years when the batteries got better. Building a global network of battery changing stations just didn't feel like the right solution. In total, Better Place ended up selling 1,500 cars. That's not a lot considering there was over $800 million invested in the company, and they actually didn't build the cars themselves. They partnered with car manufacturers to actually build the cars. Still, Better Place spent $500,000 on every single car sold. That just feels like a lot. Better Place clearly never found a product market fit. Users were not willing to buy these cars with this special battery replacement technology. On top of that, very few car manufacturers were ready to support the project. I think there's a basic lesson for entrepreneurs here. Find a problem that's big enough and that you can solve. I think Better Place did neither. Number 7, Jawbone. Jawbone comes in on the list as number 7 with 1.2 billion invested the day they shut down in 2017. Jawbone developed and produced wearable technology such as wristbands, wireless Bluetooth headsets, and related technology. Jawbone was always struggling. They were in fierce competition with Fitbit, but it always felt like Fitbit could offer similar products but at lower prices. Jawbone also had multiple legal disputes with Fitbit. In 2015, Jawbone accused Fitbit of stealing trade secrets. In 2016, there was a patent dispute that Fitbit won. This is clearly a question of product market fit. Even if they had product market fit, it did look like the competition had a better product market fit. There's a little bit more to Jawbone. Jawbone has something that a lot of other companies on this list have too. We'll get to that at the end of the video. In such a capital-intensive industry like hardware, there just isn't room for a lot of mistakes. Hardware is just very hard. With that, let's get to number 6, and this one is a little bit different than all the other traditionally funded startups. Number 6, Go.com. Go.com comes in on the list as number 6 with 1.3 billion invested the day they shut down in 2001. Go.com was not a traditional startup. Go.com was a startup inside Disney. I added Go.com to the list as Disney made it public how much they invested and lost in Go.com, and that number certainly qualified them for this list. Disney wanted to build a portal that had all the content that Disney provided. Disney also acquired the search engine Infoseek, and Infoseek came a part of Go.com. Things did not go as planned for Go.com. There was legal problems. A search engine called GoTo.com sued Go.com because the logos were too similar. Disney actually lost the case, and have a look here, you can see the two logos next to each other, but Disney could not use the logo anymore. After 3 years of not getting where they want to go, Disney in January 2001 decided to shut down Go.com. They announced that they were shutting down Go.com as well as the search engine, laying off around 400 people, and I guess Disney's .com bubble had burst. Next is the first new entrance on the list. Number 5, Catera. Catera comes in on the list as number 5 with 1.7 billion invested the day they shut down in 2021. Catera attempted to revolutionize the construction industry by using technology to streamline the design, engineering, and building process. According to Catera itself, they failed because of COVID-19 and the inability to raise more funds. That might be what killed them in the end, but it does look like there was a lack of focus and they never really found a product market fit. On top of that, they had SoftBank as their primary investor. SoftBank can mess up any good company. We saw that with WeWork. They invest too much money, set too ambitious goals, and you end up with a company with no focus at all. That might well have been what happened here. SoftBank can really mess up any startup. And now things are getting interesting. We are getting to a big one. Number 4, FTX. FTX comes in on the list as number 4 with 1.8 billion invested the day they shut down in late 2022. FTX was a high-profile cryptocurrency exchange and crypto hedge fund, and it was a shocker when it all came crashing down in 2022. They spent money like crazy. They had their own FTX arena in Miami, and they were endorsed by everyone.
You know what? I'm in.
Although some smart people said no.
I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
The founder was Sam Bankman-Fried, also known as SBF, now more like Sam Bankrupt Fraud. He was the hero of the crypto community and known as the generous billionaire.
The guy you see next to me is the most generous billionaire in the world.
Now it does look like he was generous with other people's money. FTX is really worth a full video, and I might just do that, but here's some of the madness we know about already. According to the bankruptcy lawyer, the governance was worse than Enron. For example, their auditor was only available in the metaverse. True story, they could only reach their auditor through the metaverse. This company was run by a bunch of kids with little to no experience from an apartment in Bahamas. Still, they managed to raise a lot of money. FTX was a massive embarrassment for the biggest venture funds, and the list of investors was the biggest and the brightest. Investors like Sequoia, Iconic, NEA, Tiger Global, Insight Partners, and BlackRock, they clearly didn't do their due diligence. On top of all the money lost by investors, there is the customers' money, and that could be $8 billion and mostly lost, a tragedy for a lot of people. Founder SBF has been arrested and extradited to the US. He went from hero to an orange jumpsuit in a very short time. He will also go to prison for a very, very long time. One big lesson here is do whatever you want with your own money, but don't mess with other people's money. They will put you in jail. Simple as that. Number 3, Quibi. Quibi comes in on the list as number 3 with $2 billion invested the day they shut down in late 2020. Quibi was a short-form content streaming service that launched in April 2020 and shut down less than a year later. The service was founded by Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katzenberg, both whom had very successful careers in tech and entertainment industries. Great people, lots of money, what could possibly go wrong? According to Quibi, the official explanation was that the idea just wasn't strong enough to justify a standalone streaming service, and because of the timing. Timing as in COVID-19. This makes sense, but it was not the only reason Quibi failed. Before we get to that, I did a full video on the reasons why Quibi failed, so please check it out. We can learn a lot from Quibi's failure, link in the description. In short, the founders were arrogant and broke every single rule on how to build a startup. That is why they failed. No MVP, too much funding, no product market fit, and they did all that. They were always bound to fail with or without the pandemic. And we are getting to the top. Number 2, Cylindra. Cylindra comes in as number 2 with $2.1 billion invested the day they shut down in 2011. Now that's a lot of money invested and lost. And actually Cylindra was number 1 on the list when I did it in 2019. So we have a new number 1. Cylindra was a manufacturer of thin film solar cells. The secret sauce to the product was that it didn't use polysilicon. Not using polysilicon was an advantage as it was costly and there was a shortage of polysilicon in 2008. In 2008, the price of a kilogram of polysilicon was $400. That was great for Cylindra. However, Cylindra quickly lost the advantage as the price fell to $50 over the next few years. And today it's even lower. The high price was due to a shortage, and over the next few years, supply increased and rapidly took the price way down. As the price of polysilicon fell, Cylindra just couldn't compete anymore and lost to cheap Chinese solar panels. Cylindra's solar panels were just too expensive. In its core, that's a lack of product market fit. They just couldn't build a product at the price that the market was willing to pay. I'm not going to get into politics, but Cylindra was a bit of a hot potato, as some of the money lost were loans from the federal government. And in some circles, the Obama administration was blamed for the loss. Before we get to number 1, make sure you stay tuned when we look at what they have in common and what we can learn from them in just a second. Also, if I missed somebody, put it in the comments. If you like the content, also make sure you subscribe. And we are at number 1. We have a winner, the biggest startup failure of all time. Number 1, Argo AI. Argo AI comes in at number 1 with a staggering $3.6 billion invested the day they shut down in 2022. This is the biggest startup failure in the history of startups. Argo AI developed self-driving technology and are the first casualty of the self-driving revolution, even before we have self-driving cars. They were focused on developing autonomous vehicle technology for use in ride-hailing and delivery services. Argo AI has partnerships with several major automakers, including Ford and Volkswagen. This is not a bankruptcy, but Argo AI was disbanded and tech and some employees were taken over by Ford, as Volkswagen, the biggest investor, decided not to invest anymore in Argo AI after they had a quarter where they lost over $800 million. Yes, this is definitely a failed startup. So why did they fail? I think we've realized over the last few years that fully autonomous driving is a bit further out than we expected. This meant a lot of automakers were betting on driver assist systems instead of fully autonomous. Argo AI was betting on fully autonomous, and you could say they were just too early and ran out of money. Okay, so that's the list. Now to the exciting part. What can we learn from this list? Looking at the list, it becomes pretty clear that one thing that's almost always there, the lack of product market fit. And the real mistake here is that these companies scale before they have product market fit, and that's just a no-go. And then we have timing on number 1 for Argo AI. Honestly, I don't think they could know. The timing just changed on self-driving cars, and they couldn't know. And then they just ran out of cash. The timing was off. They were too early. Finally, there's fraud. Not much to learn, just don't do it. Another interesting observation here is that all the startups are in the US except for FTX. FTX is in the Bahamas, very close to the US, mostly founded and funded in the US, so basically a US company too. It's interesting that only US made the list. Actually, the geography gets a little bit more crazy, as 7 out of 10 are from California. All 7 are either from San Francisco or Los Angeles. Incredible that 7 out of 10 on this list are from 2 cities in California. Sure, there's some really big losses in California, and you're tempted to think, they make some horrible investments in California. However, California looks bad because the willingness to make big bets is in California. This is where people invest a lot of money into startups and are willing to take a lot of risk. When you make big bets, you will win some and lose some. And we have to remember the number of winners here is even more staggering than the losers. Companies like Facebook, Google, Apple, Cisco, Intel, Oracle, eBay, Salesforce. I could keep going. There are so many great companies in California. There was one more thing I noticed when I researched these companies. Some something that probably is a contributing factor. Most of these companies have very charismatic leaders that are very good at raising money. An example of this is Hossein Rahman of Jawbone. Here's what Fortune magazine said about him in a 2017 article. Jawbone had all the elements of a Silicon Valley legend. Its CEO was a larger-than-life fellow named Hossein Rahman who talked big and was a master of raising and spending money. Now let's play a little game here. What if we replace the company and founder in this quote? The quote is just true for a lot of the founders on the list. Take Elizabeth Holmes, probably still true. Take SBF, probably still true. It does look like the founders on this list were better at raising and spending money than actually running a startup. And those are two very different things. That's it. If you want more content just like this, please consider pressing like and subscribe and you won't miss any future videos. Thank you very much for watching Raw Startup. Now stop watching and go build something.